Okay, we're continuing to talk with my aunt Ellen Davenport. Um, did you want to share anything more about your childhood or the Warriors, or should we move on to the late 40s, 50s?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. So after art school, what happened?
After art school,
Mm-hmm.
I met a young man named Alfred Greenwald, and we got married. After 3 months, we met each other through a friend of mine down in Maryland, and I was living down there with him for about 10 years. He died at the age of 40. His health was very poor because he had ulcerative colitis, and it finally did him in. And he was a darling, sweet man, and his life was really tragic because he had everything. He was smart and enthusiastic and a very lovely guy, and he finally got cancer in that area, the digestive area. So he died, and I went through a lot of torment and unhappiness. Finally, my parents and brother helped me decide to become a teacher, an art teacher.
Before
And
then, you were just keeping the house for.
that's right. I had jobs, so
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a newspaper in Baltimore for a while, and so I did little things like that.
Doing what with the newspaper?
Well, I worked in the department that prepared ads for the paper.
Okay.
So
Did you artwork? Did you draw any of the ads or just lay out?
I did very little of that. I did a tiny little bit of that, but it was mostly proofreading and odds and ends jobs. I used to go down to the printers to help dispose of ads that we no longer needed. That was a big job, and that was an interesting job. It was any high school kid could have done that job, but it was good to be out, get out, and go to Baltimore every day.
So when you went to where did you get your further education to become a teacher?
Oh, well, in order to get a teaching certificate, I had to go back to school for a while. I went to Penn, and I had some courses that were required for a certificate. And I had some very good teachers too. There was one course in Pennsylvania history, which wasn't much, but I had some interesting courses during that year or two I went back. And then I went looking for a job, and that was very difficult. It's very hard to get a job as an art teacher anyway, but at that time it was unusually difficult, I think, and I struggled with one job after another, which was impossible. I had one job where I had 9 classes to teach a day. Can you imagine?
No.
Yeah, it was.
I complain about 3, so.
Yeah. Well, this was ridiculous. But the superintendent of that district could brag and say, we have an art teacher in this school and an art teacher in that school, and it was a big deal to have an art teacher here and there. But they treated us terribly. Really, it was shocking. And I was my jobs got better, and until I finally landed the one at Rose Tree Media, which was really a good job, and I could recognize it as a good job. And I worked there about 25 years.
And you lived around media for a while, didn't you?
Well, no,
I remember.
not
No, where
near
were you living?
media.
I remember we used to visit
Morton,
you before. Morton.
Morton.
Okay, Morton.
Morton. I had been living in the city, and it was very impractical commuting all the way out to Boothwyn and the other impossible jobs I had.
So that brings us to the 60s and so forth. I remember we would visit you, and you always had very interesting friends. There were some Japanese friends that you had, and there were
Nobi.
That's right, Nobi, and so basically during those years, when you were not teaching, you had friendship plus your own artwork that you were focusing on.
Right, right, yeah. But I didn't move to Morton until I had the job at Rose Tree Media, because I didn't know where I was going to live. It had to be reasonably near my school district. And when I finally landed the job in Rose Tree Media, I knew that I was okay, and that I could move anywhere I wanted to be, as long as it was near the district. And that's when I moved to Morton.
Before we talk about your meeting Uncle Martin, is there anything in those years that you'd like to share?
Well, they were years of dating a lot of different men and having close friends. I just talked to my friend Louise. Louise, her name was Carrie, years ago. Just the other day, she called. We used to get together dinner time sometimes, where I would have the meat and she would have the vegetable, and we'd throw together dinners, and we had a lot of fun doing that.
Okay, so let's take a break here.